Florida Attorney General James Uthmeier. He's the former chief of staff to Governor Ron DeSantis. Nobody's ever voted for Mr. Uthmeier, but he holds the position as Florida's top cop thanks to a DeSantis appointment following a vacancy. He was also campaign manager for the failed DeSantis presidential run. Currently, Uthmeier is being dogged by questions about his involvement in a scheme to move $10 million owed to the state of Florida around the elected state lawmakers, mostly into his political committee, and he is not happy about the questions.
So does anybody have a question about protecting our kids? I'm kind of tired of the politicized narratives.
It takes a lot of nerve to launder millions of dollars around state coffers into your own political committee, only to then accuse others of political narratives. You're in trouble now because you were building political narratives with money that didn't belong to you. It belonged to the public. Some advice for Mr. Uthmeier: if you weren't playing politics with the taxpayers' money, you wouldn't have to answer questions about playing politics with taxpayers' money. Here's what happened. The Medicaid managed care company Centene had a multi-state dispute because they had overbilled several states through their pharmacy benefit managers. According to reporting by Lawrence Maurer at the Tampa Bay Times, Centene figured out how much they owed each state based on a formula. That formula indicated that Centene owed Florida taxpayers $67 million as a refund for overbilling. But instead of refunding all of that money back to the state, Centene was ordered by the state to pay $57 million to the state and the remaining $10 million to Hope Florida, a charity closely aligned with Florida First Lady Casey DeSantis. Hope Florida then flipped that money to two dark money organizations who shuttled the millions back to Uthmeier's PAC. Attorney General Uthmeier says the $10 million that ended up in his PAC was just a sweetener paid by Centene.
My understanding is that there was a sweetener in there, that the Centene's estimated harms to the state was $57 million, and that there was a sweetener put in there because the state was acting in good faith.
But we just showed you that isn't true, and it makes no sense anyway. Why would Centene refund Florida more than they owe? Why would a managed care company give a sweetener in the first place? Even Centene said that this was not true. But back to the Times-Herald reporting. Quote, the $10 million that Governor Ron DeSantis' administration diverted to a state-created charity last year consisted of Medicaid dollars owed to state and federal taxpayers, contrary to what the governor and other public officials have asserted. After knowing enough to characterize the $10 million payment as a sweetener, Uthmeier then said he had nothing to do with the transaction.
I was not involved in the settlement negotiations related to the Hope Florida contribution.
This is obviously a lie. Public records show Uthmeier had a call with Centene as the multi-state dispute was getting resolved. According to the Miami Herald's Alex Glorioso, quote, text messages showed Uthmeier told the leader of Save Our Society from Drugs to apply for the money. House Health Budget Chairman Alex Andrade even produced copies of the text messages to evidence the correspondence. Uthmeier clearly shepherded this money away from the taxpayers and into his political fund. Listen to Hope Florida Chairman Joshua Hay admit in legislative testimony that he had no idea $10 million was incoming, and he had no idea where it was going when it left.
Department has no knowledge, to my understanding, that that money was coming into the organizations. I cannot confirm what the funds were used for. No, we have no monitoring procedures. We have no staff. I'm chairing the volunteer capacity.
Now we know where that money ended up. A political committee called Keep Florida Clean, run by James Uthmeier. Nobody is even disputing that that's what happened. Instead, they're saying it's justified because Uthmeier spent the $10 million defeating a marijuana amendment. Apparently, it's okay to steal from the taxpayers as long as you use the stolen funds for a winning political effort?
These other nonprofit organizations that have helped, against the Amendment 3 effort, we should be thankful to them, to all of them. They stepped up in a big way, and because of that, we won.
This explanation shows how the people involved in this controversy keep changing their story. Which is it? Is James Uthmeier an unapologetic political operative, proud that he found a way to take money from the taxpayers and kill the marijuana amendment? Or, as he also said, is he a stranger to this settlement? I played that in the clip earlier. Nobody can keep their story straight. Even within Hope Florida, which was wrongly used as a pass-through for funds to get to Uthmeier, people are either mad or confused. Remember, Hope Florida's chairman said they had no idea the funds were going to political activity.
Quite frankly, I don't know what the funds were used for.
Stephanie White is on the board of Hope Florida, and she acknowledged that something is rotten in Denmark. In a Florida Politics piece, she is quoted as saying, quote, "The elephant in the room is a $10 million settlement. I would like counsel's advice. Was it public money that was used? And can we be assured that everything that happened is correct and that we did everything legal?" To be clear, even on the Hope Florida board, they don't know whether their own actions were legal. But if you ask questions, you don't know what you're talking about.
You don't even know what you're talking about. You don't even understand what the program is actually doing.
One man who does know what he's talking about is Florida House Budget Chairman Alex Andrade, who joins us now. Mr. Chairman, you invited the people associated with these pass-through organizations who touched the $10 million on its way to James Uthmeier to your committee. They failed to appear. What do you draw from their refusal to give you honest testimony?
What I draw is that they are concerned about incriminating themselves.
And how would that happen?
Well, if they gave testimony under oath today talking about James Uthmeier's involvement, they'd be incriminating themselves in both money laundering and fraud.
So it's your belief that crimes were committed here and that the reason people won't come forward is that they're just going to refuse to answer?
Yes. And remember, I mean, this is a subcommittee meeting in the Florida legislature. We were asking for facts just to frame our own policy decisions. We're not the prosecution. I think right now the refusal to testify by the attorney for the Hope Florida Foundation, Jeff Aaron, Mark Wilson of the Florida Chamber of Commerce, and Amy Rosenhausen from Save Our Society from Drugs is that they do not want to give testimony that will further support a future prosecution if one does come.
The Times-Herald is reporting that your work on this matter may be over. My sources say that the Speaker of the House is still considering allowing you to investigate legislative remedies to put up guardrails against this type of fraud going forward. What can you tell us about your work ahead?
Yeah, I made some statements today about, kind of concluding our inquiries into it. And what I was really just talking about is I'm done asking people to come and voluntarily talk about this. I have the information to know what happened. Now, we might take some official actions. We could stand up a whole separate committee. The speaker can do other things. It's just me driving this ship independently of, others in the legislature. That portion's concluded. I know what happened. I know $10 million in Medicaid money was absconded with by James Uthmeier, and $8.5 million of that ended up directly in his PAC. I'm completely aware of that being improper. I know that it's illegal. And so now it's just we're going to frame our policy decisions going forward, knowing that we cannot trust the executive administration under Governor Ron DeSantis to be responsible stewards of the taxpayer dollar.
James Uthmeier, the current Attorney General, doesn't seem to be saying he didn't do it. He seems to be saying, yeah, I did it and it's legal. If the legislature doesn't establish guardrails, are you worried that in the future, settlement funds that are owed to the state will be diverted for political campaigns?
Absolutely. Not only is he kind of, acknowledging that it happened, he and Mark Wilson from the Florida Chamber of Commerce have all but told us we should be thanking them for using Medicaid money for an anti-Amendment 3 campaign. It's a brazen level of hubris on their behalf. And it's a complete misunderstanding of how Medicaid money should be used. No, absolutely. I think we should increase criminal penalties for public corruption. We need to probably stand up a stronger review of public corruption. I mean, this was the governor's chief of staff that was this arrogant to do something so brazen. He didn't even cover his tracks to the point where he's now almost bragging about what he did. That's a serious problem, and that's a cultural issue in the governor's office that I think we're going to have to legislatively address.
I understand that things can be unlawful or illegal and not criminal. It's your assessment. You're a lawyer, and you think this very well might be criminal. That's obviously up to prosecutors and grand juries and juries and judges to decide. But if what you're saying is that your investigation has definitively determined that the law was broken, don't you think the House of Representatives has to consider impeaching the Attorney General?
That's a good question, and it's a good constitutional one. I haven't looked into the impeachment process specifically, but I don't know whether or not a criminal act that occurred prior to someone taking their public office, a criminal act while he was chief of staff, could qualify necessarily to impeach him as the attorney general unless there's some triggering event like an arrest. No, if an arrest occurs, then yes, I think that we'd absolutely pursue impeachment.
Final question for you, Mr. Chairman. We only know about this scandal because your committee uncovered it. We are seeing some reporting that there are other nonprofit groups that may have been strong-armed by members of the DeSantis administration to misuse money for political advertising regarding these constitutional amendments. Are you going to be investigating any of those matters that go beyond just this Hope Florida Centene exchange?
Yes, and Congressman Gaetz, it was kind of funny to see Governor DeSantis kind of side with Democrats on his opposition to the Pregnancy Resource Center, statewide program here in Florida. Democrats have always railed against it as kind of an anti-abortion amendment, and so to suddenly see Governor DeSantis advocate for defunding pregnancy resource centers, it was bizarre in his proposed budget. We didn't discover until later what occurred, which was he tried to strong-arm them for campaign advertising last fall, and they simply refused because they knew it was improper. Now that we know that, yeah, it's something we'll have to look into.
House Budget Chairman Alex Andrade, thank you for all of your investigative work on this, and we wish you well going forward to be an advocate for transparency.
Thanks, Congressman.